There's only one thing that is Satya or reality, that is the Brahman. Everything else is an illusion. But because the Vedas are Apurusheya and not have been authored, they are taken to be the Parama Pramana. What happens if you use a wrong tool? The understanding that you get about the universe will turn out to be wrong. God has zero interference here. Vaisheshika Sutras, the ideas of Newtonian mechanics are there in some form or the other. So it is there in some form. It is because they are interested in understanding the world around us. So Vedanta, right, as the word says, Vedanam Anta. So they say that it's the culmination of all the Vedas. This question is very pertaining. But why should I, what should validate, right? Or why should I believe in that scripture? What should validate that scripture? So I would say that that is validated because it is said by no one. Then I would ask this question: why should I believe in God? Why is the scripture valid? Because God says so. And why is God? Why does God exist? Because scripture says so. So neither of them get validated, proved by evidence that the Vedas are set of words or scriptures that have not been authored by anybody. You might ask, how can there exist a body of scripture that is not authored by anybody? The Western thinkers have always talked about this problem of evil, which is that if there is a God and He is kind, why is there an evil in this universe? Once you realize that this is not a snake, it's all gone.
Namaskara and welcome. You're watching another edition of the Yuatma podcast with Aprameya.
Guest today is Dr. Pratosh. He is a professor of one of the premier institutes, the Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore. He is a practicing AI scientist, works at the forefront of cutting-edge technologies in AI. Professor has made significant contributions to the field. He has more than hundreds of international papers published in his name. In addition to his rigorous work in AI, he has also undergone extensive study in traditional Indian disciplines such as Nyaya, Vyakarana, Veda Vedanta, to name a few. Let's welcome Dr. Pratosh to the Yuatma podcast. Namaste, Professor.
Namaste.
Welcome to Yuatma podcast.
My pleasure.
Thanks for accepting the invitation to come here and be as a guest for our podcast. So, how are you feeling right now?
I'm feeling good. Yeah.
So, how do you introduce yourself to our audience?
Okay. Let us start the conversations with an invocation to the gods and gurus. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Asprishta Doshagandhaya Kalyana Gunasindhave Namo Namo Bhakta Muktidayine Sheshashayine Srimad Ananda Tirtharya Pada Pankaj Renavaha Pavitrayantu Mam Nityam Papa Patana Panditaha Mithya Siddhanta Durdhanta Vidhamsana Vichakshana Jayatirthakya Taranihi Bhasatam No Hridambare Padavakya Pramanabdhi Vikridana Vishardan Lakshmi Narayana Munin Vande Vidya Gurun Nama Yo Vyasamudi Davagnihi Satyastra Murutasaha Dadaha Kumataranyam Prakashaya Tamashraye Apadamuli Paryantam Gurunam Akritim Smaret Tena Vignah Punashyanti Siddhyanti Manorathaha. So in Indian tradition, it is always a practice to start anything that is auspicious with an invocation to the Ishvara and the Guru Parampara. That's what I just did. I would rather call myself a curious student, and that's it. I mean, I don't see myself as anything else.
Okay.
So I've been trying to understand things in multiple disciplines. I'm curious about pretty much everything, but my time is only limited, so I could only study a few books here and there.
Okay. You are a professor of a premier institute of the nation. So how do you work, or what exactly you do as a professor in the institute?
Okay, so a lot of people have this notion that professors teach.
Yeah.
We do teach, but teaching is only 20% of our time. In fact, we typically teach one course per semester, which is 2 courses per year.
Okay.
Most of my time goes in research.
Right.
I have a large group of young scientists working with me. A lot of them have enrolled for a PhD. A lot of them have enrolled for a master's and bachelor's and so on. So we probe a lot of questions that are out there in AI and related areas. And my day mostly goes in, reading the existing scientific literature, understanding what is already there and formulating new questions from it, conducting a lot of experiments and trying to infer out of what experiments do we do. And once we get a result, we have to convey that result to the world. That's what is called as a scientific publication.
Okay.
We write those results in what is called as a paper or a scientific article, and we send it to reputed journals and conferences, and it gets what is called as peer review.
Right.
Which is that your peers or people who are doing similar thing would examine for the correctness before they accept or reject our work. The kind of places that we publish our articles in, they have an acceptance rate of less than 20%.
Okay.
And these papers, there are thousands of papers that come all over the world. In my opinion, it is not any less competitive than any other global competition that you can think of, or be it sports in any other areas. So thousands of public papers coming to these conferences, and peers make a judgment whether or not to accept that paper, and then it finally appears, if people think that it is deemed to be accepted. And a lot of our time goes in, conducting science. I mean, what we do in our laboratories is, we conduct science, and I also teach.
Right. So like it is just a 20% of what you do as a professor.
Correct.
So 80% of your work goes in researching and publishing papers.
Very true. Very true.
Yes. Okay. So I heard that you are also one of the peer reviewers, in the concerned area or something like that. I just had
that happens that's the definition of peer, right?
Right.
Everyone who contributes to the field
yes.
has to also review someone else's work, and that's how the science works globally.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have heard that you studied in IISc. So before studying in IISc, you graduated from other university in Mysore, I guess. So what exactly you studied in your graduation, and after that what did you do in the Ph.D. or the Masters?
Yeah, I always wanted to be a teacher, right? I didn't know that being a professor entails doing a lot of research. That came as a surprise initially, but I do like doing it now. So it was always clear that I wanted to be a teacher. So I studied engineering in a college called SJC in Mysore. So after that, I came to IISc to pursue my master's and PhD. I did an integrated PhD. Once I obtained my doctoral studies in AI, I worked in industry for about 3 years.
Okay.
And then I became a faculty at the Indian Institute of Technology, IIT Delhi.
Okay.
I was there for 4 years.
Right.
Finally moved back to my alma mater, and I've been here since 3 years.
Okay. So what exactly you work? What technology you work on a day-to-day basis currently?
Okay, so my area of inquiry and expertise lies in this hot field called artificial intelligence, right? Where our objective is to make machines think. If I have to say this in one word, I mean, you might have seen these GPTs and these things coming out, right? So basically, we are building thinking machines, a machine that can see, that can listen, that can understand. That's at a very broad level.
You can say that it perceives the knowledge and it gives.
Well, that's a deeper philosophical question.
Yes.
That's a philosophical question, whether the machine has consciousness or not. That's a
we can talk.
Yeah, we can take some of those questions later. But at a very broad level, what we are trying to do is, let's say if you have seen ChatGPT or email completion in Gmail, right? And you might have seen that in your phones, your faces get recognized when you try to click a picture.
Right.
These kinds of technologies, when you tap the microphone icon on YouTube and say something, it get recognized and so on. So these are the kinds of technology that we build. There are lots of interesting questions that one would ask there.
You have also studied Vaidika Shastras. So how did you get started with studying Shastras? Parallelly with this something called as AI and stuff that we have also did this. How is it possible, and how do you do this?
You're asking my life history, looks like.
Yeah, it's okay. You can talk.
So, see, I started going to school like everybody else, right? But thanks to my mother, she always wanted me to study Shastras. So she started when I was age 8. She started sending me to different people, different pundits, their houses, and she would ask them to teach me something, right? She doesn't know what is to be taught, me neither. So she was just asking scholars around my place to teach something. So it got started like that, and the kind of curious being that I am. Couple of years into it, initially it was my mother tells me to do something, I would do it. But couple of years into it, I got so interested in the Bharatiya Shastras that it just kept me going.
Okay.
So I could not stop studying, and I was blessed to get the tutorage of very good scholars as my gurus. Ph.D. Acharya, to name one of the significant ones, and he just mentored me. I didn't even know the names of the books that I eventually ended up studying, but he told me that, here is a Shastra that you should study. I used to go in pursuit of who would teach that Shastra. By the way, I grew up in a nice city called Mysore. It's a small town. Accessibility is very good. So I had a bicycle. I used to just go around in search of people. So my Guruji told me that you need to study Nyaya Shastra. I asked him, what is Nyaya Shastra? He said, to study Vedanta, you need to study Nyaya. So I just went in search of who would teach me Nyaya Shastra, and I found out one good scholar in Nyaya Shastra by name Sri Gangadhara Bhatta. He taught me Nyaya Shastra for 8 years.
8 years.
Yeah.
Like you have studied from starting to the end of Nyaya Shastra?
I will not claim that because there is no end to any study. I have studied a few books, I would say.
Right.
Just like what is done in today's traditional schools in Gurukulas. I've studied most of the books that are there. And similarly, my journey continued. I studied the Vyakarana. Mostly I have studied the Vedanta, the Vedic studies, and Nyaya, and a bit of Vyakarana. Okay, and considerable amount of Vyakarana. So when I started at age 8, and my day typically used to start at 4:30 a.m. in the morning.
Okay.
So I used to start going to these pathas from 5 a.m. to 8 a.m. in the morning.
Right.
And I come back to home, and 9 to 4 was my regular school. And 4:30 I was back home, and from 5 to 9:30, 10 o'clock in the night, I used to again study Shastras.
Okay.
So this happened by God's grace for 15 years.
No.
Right. So that's how I could study a few books here and there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, if we see the knowledge system in this world, there are a lot of things in the world, like science, Shastras, Vedanta, Veda. So there are a lot of things here. So how do you classify? If you want to call these things as a one, how do you call it?
Good question. See, to me, all Shastras come under one broad umbrella of knowledge systems,
Okay.
Jnana Parampara.
Okay.
Now, I don't want to call it Western, Indian, right? I mean, even though some of the Shastras found a lot of support in the Western world, and some of the Shastras found support in the Bharatiya world. But in my opinion, all of these can be categorized as the Jnana Parampara or knowledge systems.
So the broad classification.
Knowledge system. And you can include science, mathematics, physical sciences, chemical sciences, biological sciences, philosophy, Western, Eastern, everything under this one broad parampara, broad umbrella of jnana, right, or knowledge systems. I think that is my opinion. I never found that this is something very different, that is something very different. I found the objectives, the methodology, and the incentives, right, of all the jnana parampara to be very much aligned with each other.
Yeah. So, if you say knowledge systems, there should be an epistemology and an ontology. So, how do you classify Bharatiya knowledge system in epistemological character, epistemologically?
Okay. See, maybe before we go there, I think it's better for the sake of everybody to understand
what is epistemology.
Yeah, you're using high-sounding words.
Right.
So when I first, what one should do is you start with some knowledge system, right? All knowledge systems developed, okay, over time. There were rishis. Rigveda talks of Nutana rishis and so on. Purvebhi rishibhi idyaha nutanaihi uta. So there was always a parampara. A lot of people developed, right, knowledge systems. Same thing happens in all disciplines. If you look at the mathematics, there was a parampara. There is still a parampara of mathematics. Indian mathematics, Western mathematics, all of it. So any shastra or any knowledge system, by the way, when I use the word shastra here, it's an all-inclusive word. I include mathematics also as a shastra, physical sciences also as a shastra, and Vedanta and Vyakarana, everything as a shastra, right? So now, a shastra broadly has two parts to it. Okay, one is, as you mentioned, the epistemological part and the ontological part.
Correct.
Now, what is epistemology is the question. So, epistemology translates to Pramana Shastra and ontology translates to Prameya Shastra.
Right.
Okay. Now, what is Pramana Shastra or epistemology? See, we'll come to that one after the other. As I said, you used extremely high-sounding words.
Yes.
So now, Pramana Shastra or epistemology. See, what is a Shastra? So basically, all Shastras are interested in understanding and explaining the world around us. Okay. So they are interested in knowing what the universe is. Okay. Now, you look at this object. Now, the question is, what is this object? Okay. Now, what are the uses of this object? How do we perceive this object? And so on.
Correct.
Right? And the next question is, how do we use this object for our good? Okay? All these questions are valid questions to ask. So basically, at a very broad level, the objective of any Shastra is to understand, okay, the world, the universe around us, and try to utilize the universe or the objects that are out there so that they are of our benefit. Okay? As humanity as a whole. Now, when you want to understand something that is in the universe, the question is, what are the tools that you have to understand? You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
So, for instance, if you were to perceive this book that is here, what is the tool that you have to perceive this book? The tool that you have is the perception or the sensory perception. You see things and perceive things. Now, that is one way. Lot of our understanding that comes of the universe comes through sensory perception.
Right.
Alright? And what might be another way of perceiving things around? Right? For instance, we all know that there is there are electromagnetic waves around us.
Yes.
Do we perceive that through our sensory organs?
No.
We don't.
We can't.
But we still know
Yes.
that electromagnetic waves exist. And it is because of EM waves that we are recording this video and it is being broadcasted and so on. But how did we perceive electromagnetic waves? It is not through perceptions, but through what is called as the inference. Right?
Correct.
So which is that we observe the effect of something and we say, oh, if this has to happen, then there should be something that is causing this. Right? And we perceive the cause that is behind that. Most of the lot of perception or lot of knowledge that comes to us in this universe about things comes through this knowledge tool, which is called the inferences. Lot of mathematical proofs that we do fall into this category of inference. So we perceive through inference. We perceive a lot of things through inference. So, for instance, I know that you had a great grandfather. I've not seen him,
right?
But I do know that you had a great grandfather, and that's through inference. You can give a lot of examples. The other way we perceive things is through, let's say, books, right? Where we just, study things, Do you know that the world is spherical?
No.
The Earth's globe is spherical, right? Don't you?
Yeah.
You do know that the Earth is spherical, right? How do you know this? Have you seen the Earth as a spherical object?
Scientists have.
You haven't.
Discovered.
Have you done experiments and inferred yourself that the Earth is spherical? So you haven't.
Yes.
But you know that, people have, scientists have said this and, you take it at face value, and that's one way to know. Now, what I just told you is that in our pursuit to understand the universe around us, we first have to understand how to understand things.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
So the goal is to understand things. To do that, you need to understand how to understand things. Right? So all the study of how to understand things around us is what is called as epistemology. Epistemology or Pramana Shastra is the study of understanding, the tools of understanding.
Okay. So, like, whatever the knowledge system you take, it should have an epistemology.
It should have an epistemology, and it does have an epistemology. For instance, if you look at physics as a Shastra or a knowledge system, that has an epistemology that is well defined. And most of it comes from mathematics, right? I mean, most of the mathematics is developing epistemology to understand what sort of universe that we are operating at. Okay. So now, even if you look at the Bharatiya Shastras, before they delve into how to understand things around us, they first think about how to understand understanding.
Correct.
Right? So what sort of questions would come up? The questions that would come up are the following. That, okay, you see something. Now you are getting some knowledge. Now how do I know whether the knowledge that I am getting is correct or not? So because we have a lot of wrong perceptions also.
Correct. We have to have
validate the perception.
Validate.
Now how do you validate the perception?
With the evidence.
And what is an evidence? Evidence is again the subject of epistemology.
Okay.
So what do you mean by evidence? Right? Evidence is again some inference or some other perception that would validate this particular perception. Now I talked of inference, right? What are the merits and demerits of different types of inferences? So I can give an analogy in mathematics, right? So when we build a system of mathematics, we first teach our students how to prove something. So what do you mean by proof? What is a valid inference? So when does an inference become valid, and when does an inference become? We make a lot of wrong inferences. Right? So when does an inference? So what happens if you use a wrong tool? The understanding that you get about the universe will turn out to be wrong. Now, before you go and use a tool to do something, you will have to ensure that your tool is correct.
Yes.
Now, first you fix up your tool. So that is, in fact, in my opinion, all the mathematics that has been developed here, right, in the world, is making sure that the tools that we use, the inference or the epistemological tool that we use to understand the universe is foolproof and tight. That is done first. Once that is done, I would not say that is done first, but that basically what is happening is the epistemological and ontological paths, they grow parallelly.
Okay.
As you are fixing your epistemological tools, you can look at ontology and so on. One will just feed the other. Just like you can, for an analogy's sake, you can think of mathematics and physics. But as new tools of mathematics develop, so new knowledge about the universe are obtained.
Correct.
And somebody made an observation, and to explain that, you went back to your epistemological space and started developing new tools. And one feeds the other. So in all Shastras, irrespective of philosophy, science, maths, whatever, right? You have this epistemological branch where the idea is to study how to study.
Okay.
It is not about understanding. It is, in fact, I keep saying this, it's not about thinking, it's about thinking how to think. Right? So make those tools solid. And using all those tools, try to explain the universe that is around you. This is epistemology. You also talked of ontology. Ontology is also referred to as the Prameya Shastra, where you apply all the epistemological tools that you have developed and try to understand the universe that is out there. Yeah. Again, going back to our physics and mathematical analogy, you use the mathematical tools that have been there and try to explain the world around us. To give you a concrete example, Newton came up with this new branch of mathematics called calculus. Now, it's a different thing that people like Madhava and Bhaskaracharya had the roots of calculus. It's a different thing, but most of it, or a lot of it is developed by Newton. So now, Newton came up with this new tool called calculus. Why did he come up with that tool? That's epistemological discovery. Using that tool, he started explaining acceleration, gravity, right, and momentum, velocity, and that's the reason we have automobiles today. So that's the third part. Let me just explain about ontology a little bit. So ontology is Prameya Shastra, where you use the tools that you have developed to understand the universe around, right? most of the engineering sciences and the physical sciences that we have today, the epistemology is mathematics.
Okay.
Right? And the ontology is, whatever we understand today.
So the technology.
No, I'm not talking about technology, right? I'm talking about the understanding, right? Or the Prameya Shastra or ontology. So in the philosophical or the Bharatiya Shastra Parampara, epistemology is of course the Pramana Shastra, right? Where they deal about when does an evidence become strong, when is it a bad inference, when it is a correct inference, and so on. That is all Pramana Shastra. A huge amount of Pramana Shastra that is out there. And using that Pramana Shastra, they look at the Prameyas. What are the Prameyas? That is where you have so many shastric branches that have come out. Different people have different Prameyas.
Correct.
So, for instance, the Vedantins have this Prameya of Atma, right? And the Bodhas have this Prameya called Shunya, and the Nayayikas have these Prameyas of Padartha, and so on. Basically, it's the way they are explaining the universe. So, different people have explained the universe in a different way. Mind you, all of these people use more or less, same epistemological tools, similar epistemological tools that are out there. There's a huge gamut of epistemological understanding that is out there. And using epistemology, you look at the ontology or the Prameya Shastras.
So now, before going further, so I have one question here. So you said like even in science as well as in like what we say Vedic Shastras, so both have epistemology and ontology. So when we say like science, can we take gravitation as an example for ontology? And proving there is a gravitation, we have to use epistemology. So can you explain a bit more about this example?
Very true, very true. This can be a nice example to give. See, if you have studied high school physics, so you know that every particle in the universe attracts every other particle with this gravitational force.
Yes.
So that is given by the product of the masses, right, divided by the distance square, and the constant that you have is what is called as the gravitational constant, or G. Now that is a Prameya, right? So not the Aprameya. So it's the Prameya. So the Prameya is something that is to be known, right? So now what is that we are knowing? We can actually calculate the force that is exerted by your body and my body using this formula, albeit it's very, very small. That's why I'm not attracting to you, right? So because these things work at the astronomical scale. So this is a Prameya. Now, what is the epistemology that is needed to understand this is what is called as the gravitational constant, or the idea of gravitation, for which you need calculus.
Okay.
So because calculus is rate of change, the gravitation, rate or acceleration, is the rate of change of the momentum with respect to the time, right? So now to understand that, you need calculus. So now calculus was first developed. Okay. Now calculus was developed, and you can define what is called as acceleration. And using the acceleration, so you can explain a Prameya, which is the force between two objects. That is how it is developed. Similarly, in Bharatiya Shastras also, you look at the Pramana Shastras, Pratyakshanmana, Agama, and Upamana, or whatever the Pramanas are, use that to explain or understand the universe around it. It can be Atma, it can be other Padarthas, or whatever.
Okay. So let us we can
maybe there is there's one other auxiliary branch that goes out of the Shastras, right, which is applying all this. Once you have ontological understanding, what do you do with it?
Correct. In science, we come up with technology.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
In Shastras, what do you do?
Yeah. So now you have technology in Shastra also. The application, of course, very, very much. See, when we talk of technology, right, we think, okay, all technology is only the application of the scientific ontology is what is called as technology, right, these days. But technology is anything where you apply apply the knowledge that epistemology is used to understand things. And once you understand things, next question that would come up is, now that I know this, now that I know that the acceleration exists and gravitation exists, how do I use it? How do I put it to use? That is technology.
Correct.
So now people have used it, right? Automobiles today that are out there because you have gravitation and acceleration, right? You can use that. Similarly in Shastras. So now they start with the Pramana Shastras and then they look at Prameyas, whatever Prameya. So now what do you do with the Prameya Jnana? With the Pramaya Jnana, different people have different uses. For instance, if you look at the Yoga Shastra, the Patanjali says that okay, by doing this and you get this siddhi, that siddhi, etc. And if you look at the Vedanta Shastra, they say that the application of all the Pramaya Jnana that you have is ultimately in moksha. And if you go to the Naiyayikas, they will say that Pararsatatva Jnana will give you something else. If you go to the Vyakarana Shastra, they will say if you know all this ontology, the linguistic ontology, then you can use good words and create good literature, etc. Different shastras
have different
uses. Of course, different shastras have different technologies. But at a very broad outset, the idea of using an evidence, first of all, making your evidence watertight and using the evidence to understand something. And once you understand, use this for your benefit. Now, this thread is common across all the shastras that are out there, is my opinion.
So, like every knowledge system should have a epistemology, and based on that, you will get the ontology, and you use that ontology or the prameya to come up with something or to achieve something. So that is what you just do.
Correct.
So next, we are now we have all these tools to go further. So coming to the Indian knowledge system, we have broadly 6 darshanas or Shad darshanas. So could you elaborate on a bit about all the darshanas? And we want to get into Vaidika Shastra or Vedanta at the end. So can you please explain all the darshanas in at least for a minute? So Nyaya Shastra, first you can see what is Nyaya Shastra and what are their epistemology, ontology and technology. You can go in this manner.
See, this is what we study for years. So you are asking me to do it in a minute.
So that people can understand, and if some interest is there in that aspect, people can go ahead with that, and they can do deeper studies in that.
Sure. So Indian knowledge system or Bharatiya Jnana Parampara, right? You can broadly categorize the Bharatiya Jnana Parampara. This is a broad classification. Okay, there are some exceptions as the ones that have their roots, or at least accept the validity of Vedas.
But Buddha and Jaina don't have the
ones that do not accept the validity of Vedas.
Yeah.
So, the Vaidika Shastras and Avaidika Shastras. Now, in the Vaidika Shastras, all the darshanas that you just mentioned, Shad darshanas. Shad darshanas are 6 schools of knowledge system, right? The Purva Mimamsa, the Uttara Mimamsa, the Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Sankhya, and Yoga. These are Shad darshanas. And you also have the Avaidika schools of thoughts, where, whatever you mentioned, the Buddha school, the Jaina school, the Charvaka school, right? All these are the Pashupata school, all these schools come under the Avaidika darshan.
Yes.
All of these schools have their own epistemology, their own ontology, and their own technology.
Okay.
Right? So now, as I said, right, it's like generations of people have spent their lives to develop all this.
They have their own paramparas.
Every school has very, very long-standing parampara, which dates to even today. Right? It's very hard to go through all of that. So broadly, right, in all these darshanas, so broadly they take the sensory perception and the inference and the knowledge that is obtained by the book as the epistemological bedrocks.
Okay.
They are respectively called the Pratyaksha, the Anumana, and the Agama. Broadly, I'm saying, there are exceptions. Again, the Charvakas, right, do not subscribe to inference.
Yes.
Neither inference nor Agama, right? And there is a different there. But if I have to take the universal set of all the pramanas that are the evidences that are there, there is Pratyaksha, Anumana, and Agama. Now, different schools have different ontological systems. So, do you want me to expand all of them one by one?
Vaidika Siddhanta, we have 6 schools, right? So, we want to discuss at least to some extent so that we can understand the things
The
better.
Pura Mimamsa, and by the way, all these schools, they have their ideas embedded in what are called as sutras.
Okay.
Okay. What are sutras? Sutras are aphorisms. Okay. Which are, you might think of them as, small bits of sentences. They are not even complete sentences. They are incomplete sentences, which would imbibe an idea. Okay. So, for instance, the Pura Mimamsa, every idea comes from this book called the Jaiminiya Sutra.
Okay.
Okay. Which is also called the Mimamsa Sutra. It is ascribed to the Rishi Jaimini.
Right.
Now it starts as, Athato Dharma Jignasa, right? So now this Jaiminiya school, so there are lots of sutras. So all of these ideas are derived from those sutras.
Okay.
Okay. And Uttara Mimamsa, or also called as the Vedanta, has its root in the Vyakarana or the Vedanta Sutras, also called as the Brahma Sutras. Okay. And the Nyaya has the Nyaya Sutras, right?
Okay.
The Vaisheshika has the Vaisheshika Sutras. And the Sankhya and Yoga Sutra is the famous Yoga Sutra by Patanjali and so on. All of these, they are small pieces of knowledge, pieces of sentences.
The Sankhya has also got sutras.
Yes, Sankhya Sutras are there,
Okay.
Vaisheshika Sutras are there, and all these have sutras. Now, all the ideas about epistemology, ontology, and technology, all of them will be embedded in sutras.
Okay.
Okay. Now, what is this Pura Mimamsa all about? Pura Mimamsa is they are Vaidikas. I mean, which means that they accept the validity of Vedas, right? And they focus mostly on, epistemology is more or less is there. They actually agree that both all Pratyaksha Anumana Agama are valid evidences. So using that, what is that they understand? Their motive or broad philosophy is that you will have to conduct a lot of karma, right? The yajna and all that. So they say that the ultimate purpose of the Vedas is to prescribe different kinds of yajnas. Okay, and from doing yajnas, what do you get? You get what is the technology? How do you use these yajnas? You can use these yajnas for everything, right? If you want, again, these are what have been subscribed in these books. Right. So for if you want rain, then there is some yajna. If you want the swarga, you have one yajna. If you have something else, you have one yajna, and so on. So there is an entire shastra. The questions like when you are performing an yajna, right? How do you have to, or rather, where do you have to place the bowl in which you have your house? So that is a question.
Okay.
Now, do you have to place it right side or do you have to place it left side? What happens if you place it right? What happens if you place it left? Okay, like there are 2 or 3 other multiple Veda mantras that would say one say that it has to be placed here, one say that it has to be, how do we resolve the conflict and all that. These are the questions that are asked in the Mimamsa Sutras, and these are answered. Okay. So basically the idea is that the purpose of the human being is to conduct yajna and obtain whatever they want. So this is broadly what is done in the Pura Mimamsa Sutra.
We'll get to Uttara Mimamsa at the end. So now we can go to Nyaya.
Okay. Nyaya and Vaisheshika can be combined at some broad level, even though there are nuances that are there. For the sake of discussion, we can continue.
Yeah, we can.
So they say that you will have to understand the universe around you.
Okay.
And they call them as padarthas. You need to have padartha tattva jnana. And Vaisheshikas and Nayayikas, they say that okay, there are 7 padarthas, 8 padarthas, and all that. So the questions that they ask is, okay, what is this made of? What is the constituent of this padartha? And that's why you might have heard that in the Vaisheshika Sutras, the ideas of Newtonian mechanics are there in some form or other. So it is there in some form. It is because they are interested in understanding the world around us. And you can very roughly connect them with the modern world physicists. So they want to understand the universe around it. What is this composed of? What is the other thing composed of? And they use epistemology to do that.
So, but the main difference is the modern scientists will not accept the Veda as a source of knowledge.
Well, the Nayayikas and the Vaisheshikas also, they don't derive a lot of ontology from Vedas anyway.
Or is it? Okay.
They do accept Vedas are valid pramana, but most of it comes from the inference actually. Right? And they accept the presence of an Ishvara. They say Ishvara says so and so on. And most of the focus is given to understand the world around us. So they use epistemology to do that. Okay. And this is about Nyaya and Vaisheshika.
Sankhya.
And you have Sankhya is also similar. They also want to understand the world around us. They say that there are two types of Sankhya's, Nirishvara Sankhya and Seshvara Sankhya. One which accept in the existence of an Ishvara or a creator. The one does that does not exist, that does not accept the acceptance or the existence of any the Ishvara. But the idea is that there is this nature. And how did nature get transformed so that we have these kinds of things, and they identify multiple padarthas that are out there and so on. And in the Yoga Sutra, which is very famous, people think that it is the asana, right, or bending the body is what is called as yoga. No, but yoga has ashtanga, the eight parts to it. 8 parts to it. Yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, dhyana, dharana, samadhi, pratyahara. These are the 8 angas. They're also there. The focus is to understand the internal world and the external world. So now, how do you ensure that yoga, in fact, the definition of Patanjali, who is the Sutrakara of yoga, is yoga chitta vritti nirodha. So this is his definition, which is, you have mind, they have identified mind. All of these darshanas identify mind. So you have mind, chitta vritti nirodha. So the exercise to control vritti is different transformations of mind, if I may put it.
Vritti means transformation.
Transformations of the mind. So you'll have to, your mind thinks of multiple things. It has so many transformations, and you need to control it. So that is yoga. Now, how do you do it is the question. Now, he prescribes so many things. You have to do this, and again, epistemology and ontology is applied there. Epistemology is applied, and then
come up with the technology.
And all the. In fact, he says that if you do this, if you do this anusthana, you'll get this siddhi. If you do that anusthana, you'll get this siddhi, and so on. So that is the Yoga Sutra.
So we were discussing about Uttara Mimamsa. That is Vedanta. So what exactly they do?
Yeah, that's where I've spent a lot of time. So Vedanta, right? As the word says, Vedanam Antaha Ismin. So they say that it's the culmination of all the Vedas. So the word Vedanta itself refers to either the Upanishads or the Brahma Sutras, or the Sutra that I talked of. So the ideas that stem from the Vedanta Sutras or the Vyakarana Sutras is the Vedanta school of thought. So there again, they discuss about the epistemology. And using the Pramana Shastra, they look at the Prameya. So the Prameya, what are the Prameyas that are looked at? In the Vedanta Shastras, the Prameya are mostly pertaining to Atma. So it is the self. So is it be it the Jiva Atma or the Paramatma? It is also referred to as the Brahman. That is why the Sutra starts as Athato Brahma Jigyasa. Right? So it is about the Jiva Atma and Paramatma. And different nuances out of it. Different questions pertaining to Jivatma and Paramatma is what is dealt with in Vedanta. And as you know, there are 3 famous schools of Vedanta, which is
Dvaita, Advaita, Vishishtadvaita.
Dvaita, Advaita, and Vishishtadvaita.
There are 3 more schools like Vishishtadvaita.
No, the Shakti Vishishtadvaita and the other schools. That's okay. Mostly the ones that are famous around are they are very different. Dvaita, Advaita, and Vishishtadvaita school of Vedantas. Yeah.
So before going to that, so like we just talk about 6 darshanas. So they all accept Veda as they do accept that as a pramana. So how do we accept Veda as a pramana? Because a lot of things are happening. The Vedas are written by no one. So how do you explain?
Are you asking how do Vedantis perceive the Vedas? Is that the question that you are asking?
That is what my question would be. Because how we accept Veda as a pramana. Because Veda is accepted as pramana, and we take things from Veda, and we can use it for developing epistemology and putting it coming to the ontology and technology finally. So how do we accept and how do we see that Veda is a pramana or evidence.
At least for the Purva Mimamsa school of thought and the Vedanta school of thought, Vedas are taken to be what are called as Apurushaya.
Okay.
I have to go to the details of the epistemology now. So the question that is asked is, when does a vakya, or when does a statement that is said by somebody valid? Right?
Correct.
The answer to that is, if the sayer is truthful,
Okay.
and if the sayer knows what he is talking about, right? And if the sayer does not have the intention to
Deceive someone.
deceive someone. Now, if I say something, if I say that, there is a red monkey jumping here in front of us.
Correct.
That's a statement that I just made. Do you think it is valid?
If you are a true man, we can say that.
But now you don't see a monkey here right away, right? So you will say that it's not a true value.
Okay.
It's not valid. Oh, because I just wanted to deceive you, I just made that statement up.
Right.
Now, how can you look at the validity of a sentence, right, or a scripture? The only way to do it is to look at the validity of who said that.
Right.
Now, if you look at lot of scriptures that are scripture-based ideas in the world, be it the Abrahamic religions and anything else, which derive all their knowledge systems from one single scripture. The problem with that is, so you ask this question, which is very pertinent, which is that why should what should validate, right? Or why should I believe in that scripture? What should validate that scripture? Right. Now, I would say that that is validated because it is said by
no one.
No, it is said by the God himself,
okay,
right, or herself, or itself, or whatever. And because God knows everything, He does not want to deceive, right? He does not have the intention of deception, and He knows everything, and He is truthful, and that's why this is valid.
Okay.
Then I would ask this question: that why should I believe in God?
Right.
Now you are saying that the scripture is valid because God said so. Now, if I ask you why should I believe in God, you would say scripture said so. Now, this is the circularity of the argument, right? I mean, which does not hold its ground. Because you understand, right?
Yeah, I understand.
Now, why is the scripture valid? Because God said so. And why does God exist? Because scripture said so. So, neither of them get validated.
Correct.
Right? So, unlike those schools, in the Vaidika schools, the Vedanta schools, it is proved via evidence. It is not believed. I am using my words very carefully.
Okay.
It is proved by evidence that the Vedas are set of words or scriptures that have not been authored by anybody. So this is the idea of Apaurushayata.
Okay.
It's a very, very deeply involved idea. So now you might ask, how can there exist a body of scripture that is not authored by anybody, right? I mean, it turns out that there is a possibility, and that's a lot of debate that is there in Shastras, which would say that this is a set of knowledge that has not been authored by anybody, and therefore, so you do not suspect it, because the suspicion comes only when if the sayer is not truthful, and if he has deception or not have knowledge, etc. But now, if there is no sayer for a particular set of scriptures, then where do you get the chance of suspicion? Is the question.
Okay.
If one might say that, if there is no sayer for a body of scripture, first of all, it's very hard to understand what does it mean to say that there is no sayer to a scripture. When that needs a complete podcast of its own to actually use again. This is a prameya. This is an ontology that Veda is Apaurushaya. You use epistemology to convince or prove that the Veda is Apaurushaya. Right. And now combine it with another idea called the Pramanya Sutastva, which says that a piece of knowledge, right, is valid if you cannot suspect any validity into it. So this is the idea. So meaning, you don't have to prove validity of something. You just have to show that there is no cause for this to become invalid.
Something cannot be disproved, then it is said to be true.
This is true only in the case of epistemological evidence.
Okay.
So this is not, in the case of everything else. And I'm only talking about the Pramana Shastra here.
Right.
So a particular Pramana is Swataha. Pramanya is Swataha. That means that if there is some evidence, And if you cannot
disprove it,
invalidate it, and let's not call it disprove it, if you cannot invalidate it, then it becomes valid.
Right.
So, that is how the world works. If you look at it, you see this and you perceive this as book.
Correct.
Unless otherwise it is
perceived not as a book.
It is not perceived as a book. Or is it perceived as something else? You take it as a fact and move on, and that's how world works.
Right.
Now, if I can show some evidence to you to say that the Vedas have not been authored, right? And there is a body of literature that has not been authored, and because the Pramanya is by nature or Swataha, so combine these two ideas, Vedas become valid.
Okay.
Because you don't find an evidence against it to invalidate it.
Okay.
There have been efforts to make it invalidated, and that's how there are so many debates to show that it is not invalidated. But because the Vedas are Apaurushaya and not have been authored, they are taken to be the Parama Pramana.
Okay. So,
and none of the things that I am saying is to be taken at the face value. All of these have been very well established using the rigorous epistemological tools that are out there.
So, all three these broad schools of Vedanta, so they do accept that Veda is Apaurushaya.
They do,
and they then argue to come up with their own ontology and what is the application of it. So, we were discussing about Veda, now we just discussed about the Vedas. So, how the Puranas are situated in the spheres of these things?
See, Puranas are have said to be authored, unlike the Vedas.
Okay.
So they are not Apaurushaya.
But that still be considered as agamas when we
You can include the Itihasa also, the Ramayana and Mahabharata. They are also considered to be valid, right? Now, why are they valid is because it has been said by Apta or somebody whom you can trust.
Okay.
Now, how do you know that? So, the fact that these things have been authored by somebody that you can trust has been derived from the Apaurushaya
Veda. Correct. Okay.
So, now you don't have that circularity anymore. Here. Right? Having said that, most of or rather all the ideas of Vedanta can be derived independently of Puranas and Itihasa only using Vedas.
Okay.
Right. So, they are only there to corroborate. So, Itihasa Puranabhyam Vedam Samupa Brahmayet. So, they are only there to corroborate the ideas that come from Vedas. So, that is how you place it. So, they are the body of literature that are auxiliaries to Vedas.
Okay.
Everything goes back to Vedas.
So, even Bhagavata.
All these are Puranas. Yeah.
Okay. 18 Puranas, Bhagavata,
Itihasa, everything that has been authored
by.
They are auxiliary.
We consider Veda Vyasa as an Apta, and we move. And
the fact that Veda Vyasa is an Apta comes from Veda. Has to come from Veda.
Correct.
So otherwise, you cannot break the circularity at all.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's move to understanding of the three schools of Vedantas. So let's start with Advaita. So that is the oldest Vedanta we have got. So what is Advaita?
See, as I said, these questions are so deep.
At least to understand.
So. My understanding of Advaita is following. It stems from this famous quotation: Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya Jivo Brahmaiva Naparaha. So the basic idea in Advaita, as it says, Dvaita is the duality, right? Advaita is non-duality. So now the fundamental idea there is that the existence of the Satta. See, English language is not sufficient to explain some of these ideas. Okay. So one needs to get deeper into the Sanskritam and understand the technical knowledge there. Otherwise, it's very, very difficult. I keep giving this analogy that it is very hard to explain differential calculus, right, or measure theoretic probability using English. And you need mathematics to do that. Right. Similarly, but I'll try. So now, the basic idea is that the Sat or the existing thing, right, is only one entity, which is called the Brahman. Okay, so that is Brahma Satyam. There's only one thing that is Satya or reality, that is the Brahman. Everything else is an illusion. Okay. Again, I'm using the word illusion because of the lack of any other word in English. But the Jagat or everything that is other than Brahman is said to be Mithya. Now, what is this Mithya? So
it is not untruthful as per my knowledge.
see, Pratipannopado Trekadika Nishedha Pratiyogitvam is the definition of Mithya. Okay. So now, what is this Pratipannopado Trekadika Nishedha Pratiyogi? Definitely does not translate into unreality or something. There are a lot of things, right? People, non-experts, try to match one word with the other and say that, oh, when somebody said that the word is unreal and look, this is there, here, etc. and all that, I don't subscribe to that view at all, because you need to go to the to establish the definition of Mithyatva. People have spent their lives, and there have been debates on what is Mithyatva, and it's not trivial. Please don't trivialize it.
Right.
Pratipannopado Trekalik Nishedha Pratiyogitvam is the definition of Mithyatva. What does that mean? Maybe I can give you an analogy. The Advaita analogy itself. Now, let's say that there's darkness. Okay, there's a rope that is lying around, and you perceive that as snake.
Okay.
Okay. Now, the perception that you are getting of the snake is mithya. The snake is mithya.
Okay.
The rope isn't.
Okay.
Now, you should think of the Brahman in the place of the rope, and the entire universe in the place of that serpent.
So everyone, you, me, and everyone.
It's much more complicated than that.
Okay.
Okay. So you, me, everyone, right, is a part of Brahman. Again, as I said, it's not trivial.
Okay.
So now most of the things, including, you can actually say that you, me, everything is as a serpent. Sorry, yeah, it's a serpent that we are perceiving. The only entity that exists is the Brahman. The ultimate aim is to get rid of all the illusion that is out there, and realize oneself as Brahman. So the serpent realizing that there was no serpent. I would not say serpent realizing, because the perceiver realizing that there was no serpent and there is actually the rope is the ultimate purpose of the existence. Again, as I said, Advaita is a very deep school of Vedanta, and one reads years of indulgence to understand what it is. But at a broad level, this is what it is. The conversation that we are having right now, and the fact that there's a book here, and people went to moon, and there's a rocket that's flying there. Everything is the place of the snake that you perceive in the rope. So once you realize
that this is not a snake,
it's all gone.
Okay.
Right? So you can compare that with a dream. Right? So you see everything in a dream, but the moment you wake up, it's just gone.
Okay.
It's that. Right? So that's the Mithyatva. It's again, it does not translate into unreality, because technically they call it as the Vyavaharika Satya. So, right? So Vyavaharika Satya is again Pratipannopado Trekalik Nishedha Pratiyogitva. That roughly translates to the one that is being perceived right now, right, will not be perceived as the same thing later. That's all. So you will get a knowledge later that would invalidate what you are perceiving right now is the definition of Mithyatva.
Okay.
It's not the temporary nature of the world. A lot of people think that, okay, I'm like this today, tomorrow I'm not like this. This is the Mithyatva. This is not Mithyatva.
Oh.
Mithyatva is that whatever you are perceiving right now, in one other moment of time, you'll have to perceive that as not that thing. So in the example of serpent rope, you perceive that as snake or serpent. After a while, you go and examine, you say that, oh, there was no snake here. So that is Mithya.
Right.
So you are perceiving all this, that, I am a Prameya, this is Pratosh, and there is a camera, there is this conversation. There will come a time where you realize that none of it was there. So this is Mithyatva.
Okay.
Right? So all the purpose of Vedanta and all the sadhana that you do is to realize that Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya. So this is roughly what Advaita.
So if I perceive Advaita now, so once I realize that everything is Mithya, so then I'll become Brahma, or
please don't use such words. So there is an Abrahma that will transform into Brahma. That's not what Advaita is saying. So there is only one entity called Brahma. Right? See, you are saying that when we realize that snake is not there, would the snake become the rope?
So
there was no snake at the first place.
So there is no observer in here. Like as we say, like there is no observer at all. There is only.
We don't use those words. The observers, etc., are very high-sounding words. Let us say that none of it, everything is mithya.
Okay.
just compare it with a rope serpent.
Right.
Right? Everything that is happening here is a snake. Once you realize there was no snake, there is no snake, there will be no snake.
Right.
There's only the perception of snake.
Okay.
What was there was always the rope. That's Brahman.
Right. So this is the broadest understanding of Advaita.
Let's say it that way.
Yeah. So in Advaita Shastra, there are 4 Mahavakyas. So Tattvamasi, Aham Brahmasmi, Prajnanam Brahma, Ayamatma Brahma. So there are these 4 Mahavakyas. So these 4 Vakyas should be in consideration with the all Veda. So that is what is my understanding. So is that so, or how do they interpret these 4 Vakyas, and only these 4 Vakyas is considered as important or Mahavakyas?
They are considered Mahavakyas because the ideas that we just described, they can be derived from those Vakyas, right?
Okay.
Tattvamasi, Aham Brahmasmi, these are the Vakyas. But they fit in most of the other Veda mantras also in a different way.
Okay.
They say that while the complete purport of Vedas is to talk about Mithyatva of the universe and Brahma Satyatva, all these are there for other purposes and for mundane purposes.
Right.
But the most important are these 4 Mahavakyas is their understanding.
They give the meaning based on these 4 Mahavakyas only. So they
derive most of their ideas from the Mahavakyas and also things around it. It's not the only 4 Mahavakyas.
Okay.
They are you can think of the fundamental pillars around which it is built. But a lot of the other Vakyas are also used.
Okay, even if some Veda Vakya is telling it is perceived to be Dvaita, Veda. So can it be considered as a Advaita Vakya? So can this be interpreted as an Advaita Vakya?
So they have dealt with this question. There are multiple interpretations that are given. Some of them are reinterpreted.
Okay.
So that they don't talk of the Dvaita, right? Some of them are said that okay, these are there because later you'll have to say that they just describe what we perceive as mundane human beings, and then it would say that whatever you perceive this is not correct. It's like saying this, and if I say that the fact that here there is an elephant here is invalid. So now if you take only that part, that the fact that there is an elephant, right? That is said to invalidate it. And let us say that it is invalid. So they interpret the apparent Dvaita Vakyas that way. Some of them are reinterpreted also.
Right. So how Advaitins will interpret moksha and liberation, as we just discussed.
Moksha is Brahma Bhava Patti, which is that the stoppage of this perception, the wrong perception, is moksha.
So realizing that this is not snake and this is a rope. Is it moksha?
That is moksha.
Okay.
That is moksha.
Yeah. So then let's move to Vishishtadvaita. So the next school of Vedanta is Vishishtadvaita. So how do they perceive things, and what is the relationship between Atma and Paramatma there?
There's a significant difference between the Advaita and Vishishtadvaita. So for one, they accept the reality. They won't consider this to be mithya.
Okay.
And they accept the existence of Paramatma as an individual. And multiple Jivatmas.
Okay.
Jivatmas are multiple in number.
Right.
Okay. Now the relationship between the Jivatma and Paramatma is that Jivatma has the bondage or the samsara, and the purpose of all this to get rid of this bondage. Okay. And you need to do the bhakti and prapatti to ensure that you get the liberation of moksha. And Paramatma gives one the liberation. So in their philosophy, the Jivatma and Paramatma has this relationship called the Shesha-Sheshi Bhava, Sharira-Shariri Bhava. Okay. You can think of the Jivatma as a part of Paramatma. The Paramatma is Shariri, Jivatma is Sharira. Just like we have body and the one that is inside, Paramatma is perceived as the Shariri and Jivatma is Sharira. And the purpose of it all is to ensure that these Jivatmas get out of the bondage. And once they get out of the bondage, they get eternal happiness, which is comparable to that of the Paramatma.
Okay. So the same as Paramatma.
Again, the major school of Vishishtadvaita says that the bliss that one experiences after the liberation is comparable to that of Paramatma.
Okay.
But there is a major difference between the Advaita school and the Vishishtadvaita school, that the Vishishtadvaita school says that things are not Nithya, and they also talk about the duality. In Advaita, there's only one entity called Brahman. Here there are multiple entities.
So
there is Brahma, the Paramatma, and the other Jivatmas. There are multiple in numbers.
So do they talk about the differences between the Jivatma themselves?
Not much.
Okay.
Not much. Okay. While they are different individually, but there is no, you cannot rank order them. There is no gradation in them and all that.
Yeah. Okay. So we have discussed about Advaita Vishishtadvaita. So I'm a follower of Madhva.
So am I.
Yeah. So this is the last Vedantic school, which it's been a lot of time that in no other Vedantic school has come up against the philosophy of Sri Madhva. So what is your thought on Dvaita Siddhanta as a student, not as a follower of Madhva, or you have
sure.
Yes.
See, first of all, it's not the last Siddhanta or anything. Thoughts keep coming. There have been a lot of debates after it and all that. But my opinion of Madhva Siddhanta is that it's a complete Siddhanta. It's a complete philosophy. So I keep saying this, that even though it's a serendipity that I was born as a Madhva, I was never forced to be a Madhva by thought. Having studied all these works of multiple philosophies, I find the ideas and interpretations of Sri Madhvacharya to be very apt and complete. So let me explain what I mean by completeness. Now, while the other philosophies they've looked at several aspects of how to explain the universe, they've not been complete in the sense that they haven't looked at all possible questions that are out there. Okay, which could be which one gets as a secret. So, for instance, the Western thinkers have always talked about this problem of evil, which is that if there is a God, right, and he is kind, why is there an evil in this universe? And you see a lot of evil. Why is there an evil here?
Right? What is evil here? Just explain for the understanding.
There is people kill others, and people have ill intentions, and they would commit crimes and all that.
Okay.
If God is omniscient and all prevalent, he or she can influence all this and make everything good. Why is there an evil and all this? So these kinds of questions and more, I can go very deep into other philosophical questions as well, have not been either taken head on and considered, or taken in a very primitive form. But Sri Madhvacharya asks all possible questions, and I encourage asking any kind of questions. And he has ensured that all these knowledge systems that we talked of, which are related to the Veda, you look at the Veda Samhita, you look at the Upanishads, you look at Puranas, you look at Itihasa, he has ensured that in his interpretations, so everything has a perfect consistency. So in the sense that apparently you can find a lot of inconsistencies between these works.
Okay.
So there are sentences or vakyas that would apparently seem like talking about the Advaitic ideas like Pratosh and Aham Brahmasmi and so on. And in one place, the Veda talks about the supremacy of one Paramatma, and in one Ishvara, and in other place it talks of something else. There are lots and lots of questions that are out there on the.
So, like Shiva Sarvottamatva or Vishnu Sarvottama.
A lot of ideas. That is one debate that is out there, and the other questions that are out there on the Vedic philosophy or Vedic scriptures as a whole. Now, Sri Madhvacharya deals with all of them, pretty much every of them, right? And builds a philosophy. I would always call this philosophy as a watertight philosophy.
Okay.
The sense that it's very, very hard to find gaps, right? So any knowledge system is worthy of perseverance if you can construct it in such a way that there is internal consistency, right? So you cannot say one thing here and you cannot say something that is contradictory to the same thing that you have said somewhere else.
For example,
I should give
Advaita and
I should give you I can give you counter examples, not examples. Let's not take the Vaidika things. Let's say that, you cannot say that your Ishvara or God is is Karuna Purna, is very kind and is capable of everything, and still say that there is somebody who is. You cannot say that your God is creating human beings and he creates a child with a disease.
Right.
So you cannot concurrently say that your God is kind and also say that he creates a child with some fatal disease. So a kind God cannot do that at all.
Correct.
Right. So now how do you answer this question? Where
the God may be cruel.
You can either you say that the God is cruel, right? Or just he plays dice,
right?
Randomly he does things, or you say that there is no karunya here.
Yes.
Right. So this is an apparent contradiction that is out there. You will have to answer this.
So how do you fix this?
There are these are deeper philosophical questions. One fundamental idea is that you can see this in the very first the Upadesha that is done in Bhagavad Gita also. Is that natvevaham jatu nasam natvam neme janadhipaha nacheva nabhavishyamaha. So the idea is in Madhya philosophy, the soul or the jivas are never created.
Okay.
They are never created. They are eternal.
So eternal means it is there for
the jivas are just there.
Okay.
Right? God does not create jivas. So what the Ishvara does is just gives the body, associates a physical body with the jiva.
So he just creates the body.
Exactly. Okay. So jiva is never created.
Okay.
Right? And you cannot explain things like in other philosophies per se. You cannot explain things like in a lot of these scriptures you will see things like there are jivas who tamam aprapeva kunteya tato yatya dhamam gatim asatyam aprathishtante jagadaram nishparam. Bhagavad Gita and other scriptures talks of that kind of jivas. Right, who never get liberated. How do you explain all this?
Right.
So all these kinds of questions. So basically, you ask a philosophical question, Madhvacharya has an answer for it. Right? It is not it is not an arbitrary answer that he gives. It's all backed by the epistemological tools that was created earlier, right? And backed by very solid evidence.
Okay.
So a lot of questions, right? All these are derived out of the Brahma Sutras. In fact, it is the philosophy is so novel that, as I said, that all the Vedantas come from the sutras, and there is this Sutra Bhashya, which is a commentary that all three acharyas have written on the Sutra Prasthana or the Brahma Sutra. While the Advaita Bhashya and Vishishtadvaita Bhashya, so this requires a little bit of explanation. So there is a sutra,
right,
and that sutra is designed to explain a Veda Vakya that is out there. So every sutra fairly explains a Veda Vakya, right, broadly.
So, for example, if we take the first sutra, the Adhato Brahma Jignasa, so that is explaining some Veda.
Yes. So there explains there is a Veda Vakya that it is based on.
Okay.
Right. Sonveštavyaha savijignasitavyaha is the Veda Vakya, for instance.
Okay.
So every there is Anandamaya Abhyasa is one of the sutra that is explaining Anandamaya Prakarana of the Taittiriya Upanishad. Right. Okay. So now every sutra is designed to explain a particular Veda Vakya.
Okay.
Right. So now while the Veda Vakya that is being explained by every sutra is kept mostly common by both the Advaita Bhashya and the Vishishtadvaita Bhashya, Srimad actually changes the entire Vishaya Vakya itself.
What is Vishaya Vakya?
Vishaya Vakya is the sentence of the Vedic sentence that is deemed to be explained by this particular sutra.
Okay.
That itself is completely
the mapping.
The mapping. So the art is completely changed.
Okay.
Right. So one has to study the Bhashya to appreciate what I am saying. But as I said, the most striking feature of the Madhva Siddhanta is that it's consistent. It is consistent at every level, that all the philosophical questions that might arise, think about it. Now, if Sri Madhvacharya makes this claim that everything that is out there is Satya.
Okay.
So, it's a very stark contrast with the Advaita, where they say that everything is mithya, right? It is the snake that is only a perception. Very strike contrast is that Madhvacharya assumes or explains everything to be Satya.
Right.
Now, if you say that, see, you don't have to explain the dream.
Correct.
All kinds of random things can happen in the dream.
Correct.
Right? Just you wake up and it's done. Nobody cares about the dream. But you have to explain today.
So, like, if you say it as Satya, you have to explain.
So, there's a lot of responsibility. The moment you say that everything is true, you'll have to explain every single thing that is happening out there. Everything has to have a causation. So, there's a cause and effect that comes into picture. So, now when you say that your Ishvara is Gunapurna, which is that he or she does not have any, ill qualities, that every single thing that this Ishvara does has to be explained.
For example, if you...
Every single thing, why did Ishvara create? Why did he even give body to jivas?
Correct. What is the reason?
Well, again, these questions require longer conversations. The Ishvara gives body, bhutya didachata janasya sajya srushto iksha babhuva. So, the Ishvara gives body to ensure that the jivas realize themselves.
Okay.
So, the whole purpose here is to ensure that the jiva as an entity start experiencing the happiness that is innate with the jiva.
So, every jiva has an innate happiness.
Yeah.
So, that is what Madhva Siddhanta says.
Well, not really. Every jiva has an innate nature, swabhava.
Okay.
The swabhava, the innate nature can be of happiness or can be of, frustration and, unhappiness, for instance. So, we have seen such human beings, right?
Right.
People are unhappy no matter what you do. Right? So, the fundamental assumption is that the jivas are anadi. The jivas are eternal, they are not created, and they have a fundamental swabhava, fundamental identity that cannot be changed and that will never be changed. Because think about it. If it's innate to something, changing it implies destroying it.
Correct.
Right? So, Ishvara is a status quo, right? I mean, he just, that's why the Upanishad says, udasina vadasinam, right? So, the Ishvara just facilitates everything. He does not interfere into, he's like an impartial teacher.
So, fair God.
Yeah, so we'll have to talk more about, why is it fair and so on.
So we can talk that in a later episodes. So, now we can explain, what is the purpose, what is the main principle or the crux of Madhva Siddhanta as you are explaining right now. So, now we can, you are explaining about the Swabhava. So, how does the Swabhava, if I'm born with some body and if my Swabhava is good or the Sattvika Swabhava, so I'll get the moksha, not otherwise.
Okay, so these things have to be understood deeply. See, what is the idea of moksha? If you think about the idea of moksha in Madhva Siddhanta, muktihi hitva anyatha rupam sarupena vyavasthitihi. So it is not obtaining something.
Okay.
It is getting rid of everything that is not you. So moksha, the word moksha literally means getting rid of everything.
So I may be interrupting you, but I have one more questions. In Madhva Vijaya, Narayan Panditacharya said he has made moksha varana. So what is it is very much.
It's not moksha varana, it's just Vaikuntha varana. There's a place called Vaikuntha, and people who are themselves will be there, that's all.
Okay. Who are
you can, in fact, the Upanishad says that Jaksham Krita Ramavanaha, the jivas who are muktas can exist among ourselves also.
Okay.
It is that one place that they choose to be there, which is void of Prakriti. But the idea of moksha is very clear. It is mukti hitva anyata rupam surupena vyavasthitihi. It is, getting rid of everything that you are not there. Here is the fundamental idea. The jiva, or you and me as individuals, we are happy by nature.
Okay.
Right? So now, if we are happy by nature, why are we not happy when we are here? We have diseases, we have that, we have death, we have all this, right? It is because we have been in contact with what is called as the Prakriti.
Okay.
From time immemorial. It is, nobody made us come in contact with Prakriti. We are just in contact with Prakriti from Anadi time. You have to understand the idea of eternity. So it's exactly the same idea of minus infinity that is there in physics.
Okay.
So jivas are there and they are attached with the prakriti forever. So it is because you are attached with the prakriti, you are unable to realize the happiness that is innate. So the whole purpose of all this is to ensure that you get rid of this prakriti that you are not.
Okay.
That is not a part of you. That is the moksha.
So what is prakriti?
Prakriti is another ontological entity that has been identified, right? It's a insentient thing, if I have to call it. No, it is made up of sattva, rajas, and tamas. So it's a jada, right? It's an insentient thing that has come in touch with the jiva so deeply that the individuals or the jivas are unable to realize their own happiness. So now the karunya or the kindness of Ishvara comes in that he could have just stayed like that. He is happy. I mean, he does not have prakriti sambandha. He is not in touch with prakriti. He is a mukta.
Correct.
He can be very happy himself, right? So why should he even give us an opportunity to ensure that we become ourselves?
Correct.
So now that is his karunya.
Right.
So now he creates all the facilities that are out there in terms of this universe to ensure that every jiva will realize himself or herself. That is the entire purpose.
So that itself is the moksha.
Realizing oneself, meaning getting rid of everything that one is not, is the moksha.
Okay.
And moksha need not be blissful for everybody. It is just whatever you are. Right? So if somebody, cannot be blissful by nature, they will not be blissful once they get rid of this prakriti. So the purpose of this entire thing is to just be yourself.
Okay.
Right? And not something that you are not.
So you just spoke about karunya. So even in Vishishtadvaita, when you were explaining Vishishtadvaita, you said like even Ramanujacharya has explained about I recognized something called as karunya. So what is what is the novelty? By explaining the same thing, and you say Madhva philosophy is a watertight component. So how do you differentiate Advaita, Vishishtadvaita's karunya of Paramatma and here, like in Madhva Siddhartha? Yeah, see, it's one thing to say, it's another thing to justify, right? Or you have very strong epistemological evidences to what you are saying. Now, if you do, see, one striking differentiation between the Vishishtadvaita and the Madhva Siddhanta is that Madhva Siddhanta starts with an assumption that every jiva as an individual, right, has a very fixed identity. And unique identity.
A very unique identity, right, that is immutable. It cannot be changed.
Okay.
Now, without this, karunya cannot be justified. Right? I'll explain why.
Okay.
Now, if you do not say that a jiva as an individual is unique, right, and he or she has an innate personality, then when Ishvara thinks of liberating these souls, how would he decide how much of happiness he would distribute to everybody? Think about it.
Correct.
So this moksha now becomes something that has been given from outside, and not something that is innate.
Right.
Now, if you say that it is something that is given from outside and Ishvara gives it all, now how should he distribute the moksha?
Right.
Now they thought, okay, he distributes it equally to everybody. Okay. Now, if it is distributed equally, is it only the bliss that is distributed equally, or everything else is also distributed equally?
So, if you say equal, the definition of equal should be
no, let's say numerically equal. We have a measurement, we have a metric to quantify the equalness of blissful. Let's say that it exists and it is equal. The next question that comes up is, why only bliss that is given equally? Why not make everybody independent also?
Right. That is you are talking about the swatantra.
So in the Vishishtadvaita, the swatantra is not distributed after the moksha.
Okay.
So if swatantra is distributed, it's chaos.
So there is no God.
Yeah, of course. It completely leads to chaos. Again, these are very, very deeply discussed.
We can discuss in next episodes.
Right. But the point that I'm trying to make is that I consider the Madhva Siddhanta to be watertight in that every question that can come up in the mind of a seeker philosopher, right, is dealt with, and taken head on and given answers for.
Okay.
So, I mean, this idea of the individuals being individuals and the entire purpose of this whole creation and everything is to ensure that the individuality is respected. Today, everybody talks of respecting individuality.
Correct.
See, equality is not giving everything to everybody.
Equal should be treated equally.
Yeah. So you know law better than me. So equal should be treated equally. So now, what do you mean by equal? So now, this problem can only be answered if you say that by nature everybody has a fixed individuality and that should be respected at the utmost cost. So Ishvara does that.
Okay.
So he does not make higher individuals lower, nor he makes the lower individuals higher. He just completely respects individuality and gives everybody an equal opportunity in terms of society to ensure that they reach their potential completely.
Okay.
Yeah. So that is one of the fundamental tenets of the Madhva Siddhanta that answers a lot of questions that are out there.
So one more unique part of Madhva Siddhanta is the hierarchy. So the Taratanya. So nobody has invented this kind of principle, like even in Vishishtadvaita or Dvaita. So like what is the usage or the application of this Taratanya? Why do we have the higher souls and lower souls? Like as we said, as we discussed. So there is an individuality, and if that individuality is higher, it should be it should be given a higher opportunity, or higher, like you said, opportunities are equal, but the ananda or the happiness is equal. So like what is the reason of inventing the Taratanya here? Like what is the main purpose?
There's another very misunderstood idea in Madhva Siddhanta, and they say that in Madhva Siddhanta they talk of gradation, they grade souls, etc.
So you divide
all kinds of things. But one thing that is to be noted is souls are not created.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
Now Taratanya is not invented or induced. It's just there.
Okay.
There's a world of difference. So let me tell you something. See, numbers are there.
Right.
So you just put them on a number line. Say there is, if you look at natural numbers, set of natural numbers, there is 1, there is 2, there is 3, there is 4, there is 5. You just put it on line. That's all. Right? So, there are souls. There were souls. Ishvara did not create souls. Ishvara did not create Taratanya. They are just there.
Okay.
So if there are individuals, right? If there are individuals and they are innate, they are unique, right? There is no other go than saying that they can be rank ordered, right?
Correct.
Right? Unless you say that by construction, there is no construction here, like by nature, they are all numerically equal. Nobody accepts that because that is extremely against our experience.
Correct.
I am not equal to you.
Right, definitely.
Right? You are not equal to the other person.
So I am not the Prime Minister of this nation, and I can't be treated equally.
Exactly, right? So see, that's not a correct analogy because you can potentially become the Prime Minister. So, right? So nobody stops you.
But there is a hierarchy, like hierarchical setup is there.
But see, people make a distinction here. They think that just like everybody can become Prime Minister, so why can't every soul become everything? I mean, something else.
Correct. You can't.
But here is the thing, right? The thing is that things like prime ministerialship or being a professor or something is something that comes. It was not there, then it came.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But the gradation of the Taratanya that the Madhva Siddhanta talks about is about thing that cannot be acquired.
Correct.
See, it neither goes away nor it can be acquired.
Okay.
So this is the idea of Jiva. The idea of Jiva is such that whatever the qualities of this Jiva is, it can neither be acquired nor it goes away.
Right.
Now, if you are saying that there is something that is acquired, and some people can acquire and some people can't, then you can say that it is discrimination. If I am saying that there is a quality that can neither be acquired nor can be destroyed, and there are two such entities, which have different magnitudes of this particular quality that can be neither created nor acquired. And what's unfair about it?
Correct.
See, God has zero interference here. The Ishvara has Paramatma has zero interference in this, right? So it is, Jivas are innate. Okay, the Swabhava is just there. The Swabhava cannot be, the word Swabhava says that it is innate. So it was not created by the Ishvara.
Okay.
And it cannot be destroyed also. It will not be destroyed by the Ishvara also. So if you have infinite souls around there, they can be definitely rank ordered. Right. But the Siddhanta never says that you cannot do sadhana or anything, right? If it's there innately in your nature, it will just get manifested.
Okay.
Right? So you have to very clearly understand this, that the Taratamya is not an induced idea. It is not a created idea. Just like there are souls, and the qualities of the souls, right? It is completely innate and it cannot be created, it is not destroyed.
Okay.
It's a mathematical extension that they can be rank ordered on a number line. That's all it is.
So that the rank order might be from minus infinity to plus infinity.
Of course, right? I mean, because there are infinite jivas, right? You can rank order them in a perfect real line. That's all it is.
Okay.
So there exists a bijective mapping between the set of natural numbers to jivas, if I have to put it in a mathematical sense.
So, like you have explained about the Madhva Siddhanta. So, there are a lot of people who want to get into these Shastras and they want to learn. So, where do we get these information and this epistemology and the ontological information? So, if one has to start with the studying Shastras.
Go to school.
Where are they?
Oh, there are plenty of schools, right? That teach Vedanta.
I'm going to some school now already.
There is no shortcut to rigorous studies. It takes a decade's time to get on this. There are these granthas, right? You start from the sutras, the corresponding bhashyas of all acharyas. Look at the Shankara Bhashya, the Madhva Bhashya and Ramananda Bhashya, and their commentaries. You have, for the Vishishtadvaita Siddhanta, you have the commentaries of Vedanta Deshika, and for the Advaita Bhashya, you have the commentaries of Sureshwaracharya and the Mandaramishacharya and all that. So, similarly, for the Madhva Siddhanta, you have the Bhashya and Tika written by the celebrated Sri Jayatirtha or the Tika Pada and the Sri Vyasatirtha, Srivatsarana, and all these people. So, there's a gamut of literature, right? I mean, there is an enormous amount of literature, very rigorous, requires like decades of training. One needs to go through it. I mean, that's the only way.
So, like, there are a lot of commentaries you just said. So, there are a lot of commentaries. Why do we Madhvas consider Jayatirtha and Vyasaraja as a utmost, like we put them as the utmost commentaries and we debate a lot with the commentaries. So, what is the reason behind this thing?
Well, I would just give you my opinion.
Okay.
Maybe I'll just explain that with a small anecdote or an analogy. See, Sri Madhvacharya has written multiple commentaries on Brahma Sutra. One of them happens to be this thing called Anuvyakhyana.
Okay.
It's one of his works. So, Anuvyakhyana is extraordinarily expanded in this magnum opus of Sri Jayatirtha Srivatsarana by the name Srimad Nyaya Sudha.
Okay.
Right? So, what does he do in Sri Nyaya Sudha is he takes up the contemporary ideas of all the philosophies that were there in his time, right? And discusses them threadbare.
Okay.
All of them. And he extracts all these ideas from the sentences of the Vakyas of Srimad.
Okay.
Let me give you an example. Now, in Anuvyakhyana, so Sri Jayatirtha builds multiple pages, right, on this idea called Akhyativada or Anyathakhyativada, which is explanation of illusion. It's called the theory of illusion. So, in all these darshanas, how do people deal with illusions is the question.
Okay.
So that's an interesting ontological question to ask. What is the status of illusion? Advaita talks illusion in one way, Nyaya talks about illusion in one way, and so on. So it's called the Anyathakhyativada or the Akhyativada. Sri Jayatirtha picks up all schools and quotes their original scriptures.
Okay.
And discusses the pros and applies all epistemological tools onto it. Discusses pros and cons of all the approaches, right? And talks about the idea of illusion according to Srimadhvacharya and defends it. So this runs for, let's say, 20-30 pages of content.
Okay.
Okay, even more than that. Now, this has to be related to the Anavyakhana, right?
Okay.
So in Anavyakhana, Acharya says there is one verse that pertains to it. He says, here is how it goes. Vijñātasya anyata samvyak vijñānam hi eva tanmatam. So this is the quotation of Srimadhvacharya. So he explains what illusion is in there, okay, and says that isn't this is what is called as illusion. So there is that he word, which is a Sanskrit word, that roughly translates to the expression that we use in English, isn't it? Okay. Just reconciling what he said. Anyatha vijñātasya samyak vijñānam hi bādaha. That's what he says. And Tika just expands this, deals with all these theories of illusion, right? And finally says that, look, Srimadhacharya intended to say all this with this word he.
Just the word he.
Just the word he.
Oh, that is very beautiful.
Right? So now, if you can see all that theory coming out from that one he, you can afford not to read the Gita.
Yeah.
Right? So, but this is one of multiple examples that are out there. Okay. Same thing goes with Sri Vyasatirtha as well in his Vyasatraya. She expands, he takes up the contemporary thing and relates everything back to the Tika and the works of Srimadhacharya. This is, fairly true with most of the Vyakhyanas that are out there, Patanjali says very nice thing. Vyakhyaнаto vishesha pratipattihi, nahi sandeha lakshanam. You should always look at the Vyakhya. Vyakhya is always the expansion. As I said in the beginning, the knowledge gets expanded. Right? It's not that the Purva Rishis, didn't have this idea. Just a Jnanina api ukti vaimukhya darshanat. They would not say everything that they're supposed to say, right? And the Parampara expands it enormously.
Okay. So
that way, these two greats, Sri Vyasatirtha and Srimad Tika, they are considered to be, across the board, it is not the Madhva community itself. Across the board, they are considered to be people who are representing the highest form of Indian epistemological thought process.
Okay. It's
simply extraordinary.
Right.
So, it's like, to quote the Vyasatirtha himself, you cannot experience how sugarcane tastes just by licking the surface of it. It takes effort. You have to peel the thing off and chew it hardly and then chew it very hard to experience what it is. Same thing goes to Shastras, right? So unless you spend decades, so I'll give you another analogy, right? You cannot appreciate how beautiful quantum physics is unless you put in 20 years of effort. Right? Exactly same thing goes to Shastras. That unless you put in a couple of decades of efforts and rigorously study not one, multiple Shastras, you cannot appreciate the depth and the rigor of Shastras. And the depth and the rigor of the Shastras that are out there, if not more, are extremely comparable to anything else. You compare it with the modern physics, you compare it with the mathematics, it's extremely deep and extremely rigorous. One has to put in all those efforts and ensure that they study Shastras to appreciate most of the things that are out there.
So that was very great insights which you have given. So we would like to that is what we want to expand it more. As you said, the Shastras rigor is very much, but in the podcast we can't do it we can't.
These are starters,
right? Yeah, we have to come to the main course now. So only that could be done by going to schools, as you just said, like Vidyapitas or any to any Pandit, so that then only we can get the fruits of
studying rigorously. That's all.
That is right. So, yeah. So thank you very much for explaining this thing, and we would like to do more podcasts and giving just the insights, and so that the people can get motivated to go to study Shastras. So thank you very much from the team Yuvatma. Thank you very much.
Click the